Okay, so here we have our first question on Math Module 2, but it's actually the fourth module. So it says, which expression is equivalent to 7x squared minus 3x squared plus 3x? Okay, so it's a simpler polynomial, and let's see what happens. So 7x squared minus 3x squared is just 4x squared, because those are like terms. So we're going to have 4x squared plus 3x. There we go. Choice D. Remember, don't overthink the early questions. They should be relatively straightforward. Okay, let's continue. Question 2. Of the 800,000 residents of Annette, 656,000 have wells. What percentage of the residents have wells? Well, notice this is definitely all thousands, so we can just do 656 divided by 800. So 656 divided by 800 in the calculator, what do we get? We get 0.82 or 82%. Okay, so that's our correct answer. Let's move on. Number 3, if 5 equals 8j, and that equals 20 plus 2 times 2j minus 5, what's the value of 4j? Well, I think we should solve this, but then we got to be sure to multiply it by 4. So we have 5 plus 8j, and that equals 20 plus 2 times 2j minus 5. Okay, let's solve this for j. So I'm going to distribute this 2. So that's going to be, and I'm going to put the j's before the numbers. So this is going to be 8j plus 5. We can switch the order of addition. And this is going to be, let's see, 2 times 2j is 4j. And then this is going to be minus 10 after distributing, but then we got a plus 20. So minus 10 and plus 20 gives us plus 10. Okay, so then let's subtract the j's over, minus 4j from both sides. So we get 4j plus 5 equals 10. Now remember, we're just looking for 4j, so there's no need to end up dividing by 4. Let's subtract 5. So we're going to say 4j equals 5. After subtracting 5, that's the correct answer. 4j equals 5. So we're going to put in 5. Many times we have these free response questions, like question 3. The answer, sometimes it's a fraction or decimal, but many times it's a whole number answer. Notice, if you had solved for j, you'd have gotten 5/4, which is a fraction. So you'd have had to end up multiplying by 5 anyway. Oh, sorry, wanted to hide the timer there. Remember, I'm using the double time on the timer only because I'm really taking time to explain everything as this exam goes along. If I was taking this for real, I'd just be jotting things down, reading them silently, going fast. Okay, next question. Question number 4. If 6 times x minus 3 plus 4 is equal to 5 times x minus 3 minus 2, what's the value of x? But I would suggest, given that both of these have an x minus 3, let's just substitute another variable for that, maybe y. So that's like 6y plus 4 equals 5y minus 2. So if we're going to let this be y is x minus 3, then 6y plus 4 is equal to 5y minus 2. Notice I'm using substitution here. Why? Because otherwise I have to distribute it all out. At the end, we'll be able to get x. So let's just subtract 5y from both sides. So we get y plus 4 equals negative 2. And then if I subtract 4 from both sides, then we get y equals negative 6. Now, y is the same thing as x minus 3 though. So x minus 3 equals negative 6. So if we add 3 to both sides, we should get x equals negative 3. So what's the value of x? Negative 3 for B. Okay, so we can move on. Number 5, a bakery sells cookie dough with 3-pound and 5-pound boxes. In a particular month, the bakery sold a total of 3,928 pounds of cookie dough. The equation 3x plus 5y equals 3,928 represents this situation. Which of the following is the best interpretation of y in this context? We've got 3-pound boxes and 5-pound boxes. And we're looking for the total number of pounds we sold. So x would be the number of 3-pound boxes, y would be the number of 5-pound boxes that we've sold. So the total number of 5-pound boxes were sold. Not the total weight or the average, anything like that. So it's just the total number of 5-pound boxes that were sold. Okay, we can move on. Number 6, a photographer wishes to enlarge a rectangular image that's currently 960 pixels long and 540 pixels wide. She wants to achieve a width of 630 pixels. How much must the length of the original image change to maintain its original proportions. I think this is definitely a proportion problem. So let's do 960 compared to 540. So 960 compared to 540 should be proportional to, the new width should be 630 pixels. That's the shorter length, not the length that corresponds to 960. So 630 is the new denominator, and this we want to be x. All right, so I would suggest we can cross multiply. So 960 times 630 gives us this large number, and that's going to equal to 540x. So 604,800 is equal to 540x. Which divide by 540, so divide by 540. So that's 1,120. Okay, so that's what this value is. But notice how the answers are structured. It's talking about we either have to increase or decrease the number of pixels. So immediately we could have ruled out the decreasing the number of pixels because the width increases, the length must increase. So we go from 960 to 1,120. So what's the difference? 1,120 minus 960 is an increase by 160 pixels. So 160 pixels should be choice B. All right, so that's the correct answer. We'll move on. Okay, it says the given equation relates the numbers q and r when r is not equal to 0 and q is positive. Which equation correctly expresses r in terms of q? Okay, so that means we need to solve this equation for r. So I think we need to multiply by r. So if q is equal to 12 over r minus 1, let's multiply the whole equation through by r. R is trapped in the denominator, we're going to solve for it. So that's rq is equal to 12 minus r. Notice r got distributed in here, and there we go. Now, this is important. We do need to get r collected because we need to solve for r. So we need to add r to both sides. So that's going to be rq plus r is equal to 12. Then this is the most important step. We need to factor out r. Notice r was trapped in more than one term, so we had to factor it out. So we have r times q plus 1 equals 12. So by division, r should be 12 over q plus 1. Now q plus 1 is the same thing as 1 plus q. So we're looking for 12 over q plus 1, and that is choice A. Okay, so we have the correct answer. We can move on. So now on to question 8. It says, the given equation is true for all values of x greater than 0, and c is a constant. What is the value of c? In other words, we want x to be positive, which is greater than 0, and we want c to be a constant. So what we should do is we should try to solve this equation, or at least get something that we understand about c. So let's go ahead and copy this down on our scrap paper. So we have 28 over 4x plus 8 equals 7 over x plus 6. Sorry, x plus c, not x plus 6. So I think we could cross multiply here, because that's true whenever you have two fractions equal to one another. So it's going to be 28x plus 28c equals, then let's take 7 times 4x plus 8. So that's 28x plus 7 times 8 is 56. Now notice, it's true for all values of x. We're going to assume x is positive. And we can subtract 28x from both sides. Whatever x is, it doesn't matter. We don't care about it because it's a positive number. It's not 0. We're not just subtracting 0 from both sides, so we're safe to do that. 28c is equal to 56. So then to get c by itself, since c is multiplied by 28, the inverse is to divide by 28. So what is 56 divided by 28? So using the calculator, 56 divided by 28, we get exactly 2. 2 for c. So c equaling 2 is the correct answer. By the way, hopefully you also, if we were clever, we could have realized if we take 7 times 4, we get 28. If we take this denominator times 4, we get what's here. So c times 4 would have been 8, since c would have just been equal to 2. So we believe 2 is the correct answer. Okay, number 9. In the xy plane, circle H is defined by the equation x plus 4 squared plus y minus 4 squared equals c, where c is a constant. Circle K is defined by the equation x plus 4 squared plus y minus 4 squared equals 36. If the radius of circle H is 1/3 the length of the radius of circle K, what is the value of C? So what you could do is think about what the radius of circle K is. Now, circle K, it says H has 1/3 the length of the radius. So the radius of circle K would be 6. How do I know it's 6? Because on the right-hand side here, the equation for a circle graphed in the xy plane is x minus h quantity squared plus y minus h quantity squared equals r squared, where h comma k is the center and r is the radius. Well, if I square root 36, I get the radius of this circle, which is 6. So if it's 1/3, then the 1/3 of 6 should be 2. Now 2 is the radius, but C is the radius squared for circle H. So the radius squared is going to be 4. So that's what we mean here. We mean that these are two circles which are concentric, having the same center. So I'll go ahead and show you on Desmo that this is the case. So we're going to have x plus 4 squared plus, and then we're going to go parenthesis y minus 4 quantity squared, and then equals to C. Now we're going to add a slider for C because we're going to allow C to be a certain value. Okay, let's show what that circle is. Okay, so let's see. That circle is up here. So it's plus 4 and minus 4. Yes, so plus 4 and minus 4. The center is at -4, 4 for the center. Hopefully you see that there. The other circle should be almost exactly the same, except we know the radius should be 6. So if I put 36 here, and then I zoom out on Desmos, I should have the circle that has radius of 6. So hopefully you can see that there. They both have the same center, which, as I mentioned before, is -4, 4. I'll label that. And we want to have 1/3 of the radius. Well, 1/3 of the radius, I need C to equal 4. Hopefully you see that. If I let C equal 4, then the radius of this red circle is 2. But 2 squared is 4, so C should actually equal 4. Hope that makes sense. We've solved it the analytical way, knowing the equation, and the numerical way with Desmos. All right, we will move on. Okay, now number 10. It says a senior citizens club plans to purchase 32 tickets to a baseball game. The club has a budget of $1,550 to spend on tickets. There's a 4% convenience fee for each ticket. Which of the following is the maximum possible price per ticket before the convenience fee is applied so that the club could pay based on their budget? We're going to purchase 32 tickets. We have a budget of $1,550, and there's a 4% convenience fee for each ticket. What's the maximum possible price per ticket? So let's imagine the retail cost of a ticket is X. So it's going to be X times 32, but then we also have to multiply that by 0.4, which is 4%, and add it. So what I'm saying is 32 times X plus X times 0.04. Now, by the way, I'm sorry, X is the cost of one ticket. So really this is the total cost of all 32 tickets. So that should be multiplied by 1.04. Now, why 1.04? Because there's a 4% convenience fee. So we have to pay all the retail price plus the 4% convenience fee. And that should equal to the total amount we have in the budget, $1,550. $1,550. Okay, so I think we should be able to solve this for X. So let's first divide by 1.04. So we get 32X is equal to, so it's 1,550 divided by 1.04. So that's this number, okay? And then we need to, so this is about 1490.38. Then we need to divide by 32. So dividing by 32 should give us the retail price. This divided by 32 gets us the retail price of $46.57. So X is about $46.57. Now think about this, ladies and gentlemen. We do need to round down. Why rounding down? Because we want to make sure we're within budget. We don't want to go over budget. So we don't want to round to $46.58. I think it should be $46.57 or lower. Okay, so let's check the choices. $46.57. So for B. So I believe we have the correct answer. We will move on. Okay, in the xy plane, the graphs of the given system of equations intersect at the point x comma y. What is a possible value of y? We could actually first say, since y is 2x squared minus 15, we could insert that in there and then solve. So let's try that using algebra first. So for number 11, we'll say it's 6x minus, and then we'll put in the entire value of y. So 2x squared minus 15. Close it off, equals 7. Okay, so that's 6x minus 2x squared plus 15 equals 7. Now we got to get this in standard form because we got to get it to a quadratic. Let's start off with the quadratic term, negative 2x squared. So that's the power 2 term. Then let's go plus 6x, that's the linear term, x to the power 1. Then we got to move the 7 over with a subtract 7. So that's going to be positive 8 equals 0. Okay, now we're just looking for the x values. So I'm going to suggest we divide this equation by negative 2. Why negative 2? All the terms are even, so the greatest common factor is 2. And we like the x squared term, whenever possible, to be positive. It's going to be x squared minus 3x and then minus 4 equals 0. Now that's a pretty easily factorable quadratic function. So that factors to x minus 4 times x plus 1. How do I know that? That's because I need two factors of negative 4 that add up to negative 3. So that would be negative 4 and positive 1. So x equals 4 or x equals negative 1. So we can plug each of those into the original y. If you remember, this was the original y. So y, let's call this x1 and x2, by the way, with labeling them. So y1 associated with x1 is going to be 2 times 4 squared minus 15. So order of operations, 4 squared is 16, times 2 is 32, minus 15, that should be 17 for y1. y2, we just use x2. So that's 2 times negative 1 squared minus 15. So that negative 1 squared is 1, times 2 is 2, so that's 2 minus 15, and that's negative 13. So the two possible values are 17 and negative 13. So let's look in our list of answer choices. So 17 is one of the choices. All right, now could we have done this numerically in terms of just using Desmos? I definitely think so. And let's go ahead and see if we can plot this up. 6x minus y equals 7. That's a linear function. Let's show it. Then we have the quadratic, which is y equals 2x squared minus 15. Let's show it. And let's see the 2 points of intersection. So we have this point and this point when I click. So x equals negative 1, y equals negative 13, and x equals 4, y equals 17. So again, negative 13 and positive 17. So negative 13 is not on this list, so positive 17 is. What's a possible value of y? There we go. So we have the correct answer. We will move on. Hey, thanks for checking out our content with High Peak Education. Please like our video and please subscribe to the channel. Please support us through our funding partners. Go ahead and go to our website, highpeakeducation.com. Let us know in the comments what other kinds of videos you would like to watch. We can help you with standardized test prep, SAT, ACT, math, physics, meteorology, computer science, statistics, all kinds of things. And we're partnering with lots of educators right now. Happy to help you. Just go ahead, highpeakeducation.com. There's also free resources there, some online tools, cheat sheets, all kinds of great stuff. Appreciate working with you, and I hope to see you there soon. And let's get back to today's content. How many solutions does the equation 2x times 9 minus 3x equal to negative 3x times 2x minus 12 have? 1, 2, infinitely many, or 0? All right, so I recommend we multiply this out and then we see how this works in terms of what special properties it has. So we've first got 2x times 9 minus 3x, and that equals negative 3x times 2x minus 12. Okay, so let's use the distributive property and distribute each of these terms. So that's going to be 18x minus 6x squared, and that equal to negative 6x squared plus 36x. Okay, so when we rearrange the terms, we can add 6x squared to both sides. So those terms just cancel. So we get 18x is equal to 36x. So if we subtract 18x from both sides, we get 0 is equal to 18x. Dividing by 18 to isolate x, we get x equals 0. So that's only one solution. So it's only one value of x. Now let's check in the original equation to see if this makes sense. And that's interesting because a lot of times when you get a 0, you can't necessarily be 100% sure. So this term is clearly 0, this term is clearly 0, so the whole equation is 0. If I put in 0 there, then that's just 0 times 9, is that equal to 0 times negative 12? Well, it's true. Let's go ahead and check it on Desmos though. So I'm going to set up each of these as a separate quadratic. So let's go 2x times 9 minus 3x. Okay, so let's show what that quadratic looks like. I know it's a quadratic because the highest power is x squared. Then for the other quadratic, we're going to have negative 3x times 2x minus 12. Okay, like so. And it's a little hard to tell. Let me zoom out. So it's hard to tell, but it looks like they only intersect once. Looks like they only intersect at the origin. Now if I go down here, it looks like they don't intersect otherwise. So I think there's literally only one solution, one point where they have the same value. Now, one thing you could do is you could change the axes here. In other words, I could make the x-axis a lot smaller. So let's say negative 3 to, let's say, I don't know, 8. Now notice what I've done is I've stretched out the x-axis this way. So it's no longer a square grid. It's more of a rectangular grid. So it looks like they're intersecting there. And let's look at these two parabolas. Do they intersect anywhere else? It does not look like it. All right, so I think there's literally just one solution. I'm going to click back on zoom square. So that way it's sort of good zooming for Desmos for other. So this question is exactly one solution. I think we will move on. Okay, it says the quadratic function g above is graphed in the xy plane where y equals g of x and a and c are constants. The graph has a y-intercept at 0, 3 and a vertex at negative 1, 4. Which of the following could be the value of a plus c? One thing we know is that c is going to be 3. How do we know that? Because in a quadratic equation written in general form, sometimes called standard form, when you plug in 0, both of these terms are 0, so g of 0 is equal to c. In other words, when x is equal to 0, the c value, that's this constant value, is just the y-intercept of 3. So I think c is equal to 3. But then we know that the vertex is always at negative b over 2a. And in this case, b is negative 2, and then a is just whatever a is. So we can set that equal to negative 1. So that's a formula I would recommend knowing for the SAT exam. For a quadratic, for a parabola, x of the vertex is equal to negative b over 2a. But in this case, that's negative of negative 2 over 2 times a. And again, we don't know what a is. But at least we know that's equal to negative 1. Why? Because we told what the vertex is. So we just got to rearrange this. So negative of negative 2 is just 2 over 2a is equal to negative 1. Well, 2 over 2 cancels. We just get 1 over a equals negative 1. So we can cross multiply or we can just reciprocate both sides. That is, flip them upside down. A is negative 1. Now, if a is negative 1, we already said that c was equal to 3. So then negative 1 plus 3 is a plus c. So that's going to be 2. So we're looking for 2. And the answer choice is 2 is choice B. So I think we have the correct answer. We will move on. Okay, let's now examine this graph. And it says the graph of y equals f of x plus 7 is shown. This is question 14. Which equation defines f? Well, plus 7 is just a vertical shift upward by 7 units. It's sometimes called a transformation or a vertical translation up by 7 units. Now consider, this is a linear function, and we can see what its y-intercept and its x-intercept are. Either the slope is going to be -3/5 or -5/3, and we see that this y-intercept is now 2. So if that got shifted up by 7, its y-intercept must be -5. So do you see that you can get rid of the choices that have a y-intercept of +9 in them? Those are wrong because it must be a y-intercept of -5. So the question is the slope 3/5 or -3/5? Now most of you know this is a negative slope because it's sloping down and to the right. It's rising negatively and running positively. So it is going to be choice A, but let's see if we can verify that. So the slope, we rise -2 and we run 10/3. So if we rise -2 and run 10/3, what does that give us? Well, that's -2 over 1 times 3 over 10. Now this simplifies because 2 and 10 are even numbers. This is 1, this is 5. That's going to give us -3/5. So that's exactly the slope we expected. So indeed, A is the correct answer. It's a linear function that got vertically translated up by 7 units. Hope that makes sense. I think we have the right answer. We'll move on. Look at question 15. In the given equation, B is a constant. For which of the following values of B will the equation have only one real solution? Well, ladies and gentlemen, this is a quadratic equation written in general form, sometimes called standard form. What controls the number of solutions of a quadratic is we call the discriminant. Hopefully you realize that in your studying. The discriminant is the quantity that's underneath the square root in the quadratic formula. It's namely b squared minus 4ac. If the discriminant is positive, you get 2 real solutions. If the discriminant is negative, you get 2 imaginary solutions. In other words, no real solution. If the discriminant is equal to 0, you get 1 solution. In other words, 1 repeated real solution. So we're going to make sure that this discriminant is exactly equal to 0. So we need to do b squared minus 4ac. So the discriminant, I'm just going to call it capital D, is b squared minus 4ac, and that has to equal 0. So what is that? That's b squared minus 4, and then a is equal to 81 in this case. And c is equal to 16 in this case. Let me double check. So we need to calculate these numbers with the calculator. So let's do 4 times 81 times 16. So we have 5,184. So this is b squared minus 5,184 is equal to 0. So that's b squared is equal to 5,184. So we should take the square root of this. Now keep in mind, b could be positive or negative. So we're going to go plus and minus the square root of 5,184. So let's do that in the calculator. Looks like we get 72. So b could equal to plus or minus 72. Either is perfectly valid. Either will work, giving 1 real solution. In other words, 1 repeated solution, because the discriminant is 0. So 72 is indeed one of the answers. So I believe choice D is the correct answer. We will move on. How about number 16? It says the equation 4x minus 3y is equal to 22 is graphed in the xy plane. The graph has an x-intercept at p, 0 and a y-intercept at 0q. Which of the following expressions has the greatest value? The sum of p and q, the subtraction of p and q, the multiplication of p and q, or p over q? Well, ladies and gentlemen, I don't think it's actually that hard to find p and q. Because if p is the x-intercept is found when y is equal to 0. If q is the y-intercept, that's found when x is equal to 0. So if we have 4x minus 3y is equal to 22, let's first find the x-intercept. So the x-intercept is going to be when y is equal to 0, and that's setting 0 in here, we just get 4x equals 22. Divide by 4. So then x is equal to 22 over 4, which is 11 over 2. Okay? Then how about the y-intercept? Well, again, that's just going to be when x is equal to 0. So if you put x equal to 0 in there, you're just going to get negative 3y equals 22. Divide by negative 3, y is equal to 22 over negative 3. We've got these two values. So what we need to do is we need to think about which of these is going to give the greatest overall value. Now, if I were to add those, I'd be adding a positive and a negative number. So that's going to get a little bit small. If I go p minus q, that's going to give me a larger number because q is a negative. In other words, q is the y-intercept. So p minus q is equal to 11 over 2 plus 22 over 3. Now we could add this with the calculator. We could also get a common denominator of 6. Multiply this by 3 over 3. Multiply this by 2 over 2. So that's 33 plus 44 over 6. So that's 77 over 6. So that's choice B. So we're not sure if choice B is the biggest yet. The product of them will give us a negative number. The division of them will also give us a negative number because one is positive, one is negative. So I think B is the only one that's actually going to give us a positive value. So I didn't necessarily need to waste my time adding them together. I could have just reasoned in terms of the signs, S-I-G-N-S. In other words, given that P was positive, Q was negative, subtracting a negative gives the largest value. Hope that makes sense. We have the correct answer. Let's move on. Okay, we've got cy equals x over 4, and 5x minus 14 equals 3y plus 1. In the given system of equations, c is a constant. If the system has no solution, what is the value of c? Ladies and gentlemen, this is going to be 2 lines. Now, it's a little bit in disguise. Let's talk about why this is. So it's 2 lines because this would be x and y are both raised to power 1. We can certainly make these equations look easier and better. That this equation cy is equal to x over 4, that's like saying, so if cy is equal to x over 4, then if I divide by c, I'm going to say y equals 1 over 4c times x. Now notice 1 over 4c is like the slope. Do you see that? The slope m is 1 over 4c. Now what is important when you have 2 lines and they're going to have no solution? They're going to be parallel. They're going to have no intersections in the xy plane. So I need the slope here of 1 over 4c to match the slope of the other line. The other line, let's go ahead and get it in standard form. So standard form, I have to subtract the 3y over, add the 14 over. So it's going to be 5x minus 3y equals 15. So that means, now by the way, this is a special formula if it's from standard form of the equation of a line. Standard form of the equation of a line, the slope m is equal to negative capital A over b. Now capital A is right here, capital B is right here. So that's going to be negative 5 over negative 3 because it's negative A over b. So that's just 5/3. But then 5/3 has to equal to 1 over 4c. So then let's cross multiply this. So 4c times 5 is 20c, and that's equal to 3. So then by dividing by 20, c is equal to 3/20. Now 3/20 is the same thing as 15 over 100 or 15/100. So we could put 0.15 or we could put 13 over 20. Either way, let's take a look. It is a fill-in, so we can put 0.15. Let's double check on Desmos that we get the correct answer. So we have to set this up on Desmos carefully. I'm going to type just these 2 lines as is. So I'm going to type cy equals x over 4, add a slider for c. Then for the other line, 5x minus 14 equals 3y plus 1, and show it. Now clearly they're intersecting at this point. So we need to adjust the value of c because the blue line is fixed. So it looks like if I make c more positive, that's not helping. So I need to make c smaller till I eventually get that these are parallel. Now notice it's not quite parallel at 0.2. We're expecting it to be parallel at 0.15. Now if I go to 0.1, it looks like they intersect down here. So let's see if I type in 0.15. And then look at that. They are exactly parallel, no solution. So you can do this in Desmos. You have to be careful. Go ahead and figure that out. Hope that makes sense. We'll move on. Okay, so now question 18. A right triangle has a hypotenuse with a length of 42 centimeters. If one of the other sides is 21 centimeters long, what is the perimeter of the triangle in centimeters? Well, here's an important thing that hopefully you remember. Let's look at our reference guide. The only way you have a right triangle that one of the legs is exactly half that of the hypotenuse is if you have a 30, 60, 90 right triangle. In other words, this is a special right triangle, which is exactly half of the equilateral triangle. Because if this was the side on the equilateral, that would make the entire thing the same length all the way around. This is just half of that because it's cut down the middle, and then here's this side. So we can use this thinking to help us. So if we have a length of 42 centimeters, one side is 21 centimeters long, that must be across in the 30-degree angle. The side that's across the 60-degree angle must be the length of the short leg times the square root of 3. In other words, 21 times the square root of 3. So the perimeter would be 42 centimeters plus 21 centimeters plus 21 square root of 3 centimeters. So we can eliminate all of the choices except for this one, because this one is the only one that has 21 square root of 3. But if I go 42 plus 21, that's 63. That's the length of the hypotenuse and the short leg added together, and then plus 21 square root of 3. Okay? Now, by the way, if you didn't necessarily recognize right away that it was one of the special right triangles, the 30, 60, 90 right triangle, you could have found this side using the Pythagorean theorem. So you would have done 21 squared plus x squared is equal to 42 squared. And if you'd have worked it out, I guarantee you would have gotten 21 times the square root of 3. So I hope that makes sense. Let's move on. Okay, for number 19, it says, for the linear function f, the table shows 3 values of x and their corresponding values of f of x. The function is graphed in the xy plane with y equals f of x. Which of the following statements must be true? It's a linear function. Notice that as x increases by 1, it looks like y increases by 18. And let's see if we can increase by 18 more. Yes. So I think the slope is 18. So is the slope greater than 20? I'm going to say no. Is the slope negative? I'm going to say no. It's increasing function. Is f of 0 negative? Now, I believe that's actually true, because if I was to increment backwards by 1, I'd get to x equals 0, I'd subtract to 18, I'd get to negative 3. So I do believe that f0 is negative. Let's confirm that D is incorrect. The x value of the y-intercept is greater than the y value of the x-intercept. Okay, so we kind of have to interpret that. The x value of the y-intercept, well, that's always 0 by definition, because that's the x value of the y-intercept. Is that greater than the y value of the x-intercept? Well, the y value of the x-intercept is always 0, so it's not greater. So D is incorrect. In fact, D is incorrect for all x and y-intercepts. So C has to be the correct answer. Okay, so we can move on. Let's look at question 20. It says data set R consists of the average speed in miles per hour of 8 go-karts in a race, rounded to the nearest whole number. This list below provides 7 of those average speeds from the race. So 56, 56, 57, 58, 62, 62, 64. The mean of the data set R is equal to its median. The go-kart not included in the given list had neither the greatest nor the least average speed of the 8 go-karts in the race. What is the average speed in miles per hour of the go-kart not included? Here's the idea. The least speed is 56. The greatest speed is 64. The unincluded go-kart had to have a speed that is greater than 56 or smaller than 64. Let's make sure we understand that. The go-karts not included in the given list had neither the greatest nor the least average speed. So it's not equal to 56, 64. It's also not less than that or above that. So that means the excluded one, so let's take some notes. The excluded one needs to be less than 64, but greater than 56. Yes. We also know that the mean is equal to the median. So if I add up all these numbers plus the x, that equals to the median. So let's do that. So 56, 56, 57, okay. So what, and by the way, if you have a TI-84 plus, you can go ahead and just add them. But there's also a way to put the data in a list, which I will show you if I have time. Okay, so I think there's all the numbers. 56, 56, 57, 58, 62, 62, and 64. 415. Okay, so that means the mean is equal to 415 plus x divided by 8, because there's 8 total go-karts. And that has to equal to the median, okay? Now, what's 415 divided by 8? So that's 51.875. So 51.875 plus x over 8 is equal to the median. Now, by the way, ladies and gentlemen, the median is going to be the average of the middle two numbers, okay? So if it's the average of the middle two numbers, do you see that? Let's consider sort of the range of the means. Let's consider this range, because it turns out we know that x is either going to be, x can only be from the following set: 57, 58, 59, 60, 61, 62, or 63. Now, if you were low on time on the exam, I would recommend that you just guess one of these numbers. Whatever you think is probably the most righteous number closest to it. Now, in terms of the range, if I put in 57 here, I would do this number plus 57 over 8, so that's 59. And then how about if I did 51.875 plus 63 over 8? So that covers the whole range. So that's 59.75. 59.75. Now that's a big clue. That means this is the range of the means. Remember, the median has to be exactly the same as the mean. The mean and the median have to be the same. So let's look at our data set. So if the mean is 59, that means the x would equal to 57. So if x was 57, then notice the median would be the median would be the average between 57 and 58. Do you see that there? But that would be 57.5, so that's not this. So I think we need to have x be larger. So let's suppose it's somewhere in the 59 to 59.5 range or so. So how about if I made x equal to 60? 60 is right here between 58 and 62. So that means the median is going to be exactly 59. And then if I put in 60 right there, that's going to be this number plus 60 over 8. So the mean is 59.375, and then the median is the x value is 60. So these four numbers, the mean between those two is 59, and then the median is exactly 59. So that's going to give us 59 for the median and 59 for the average. Hey, just a little bit of an update. The only question that I actually got wrong on this SAT when the whole thing was graded. The reason I got a 780 score on the math was I got this one question wrong, and the actual answer was 61. I originally had put 60 into the blank. So let's figure out why that is. So if you look at 61, which is the x value that we're missing, 51.875 plus 61 over 8 is 59.5. Now if I put 61 in the data set, so what I did is I went to stat and I went to edit, and then I went ahead and typed in the whole data set, and notice 61 is now in there. The middle two numbers of this data set are 58 and 61. Now the average between those two numbers, because the median is the middle number, but when there's two numbers, you take the average of those two numbers. The average of those two numbers is 59.5. So it's the same median. You could also do stat, go to calculate, one variable statistics on list 1, and you'll see that the mean right here, that's the x bar, is 59.5. And if you scroll down, med, which is median, is also 59.5. So that indeed is the correct answer. So given that I was close to finding the right answer, maybe it was good to just kind of fiddle around with that a little bit, try some various values. So it was 61. Now, if I did want to actually solve this, I thought about maybe a different way of formulating this equation, where x is the unknown value. I already realized that x has to be larger than 57, and I knew it was probably between 59 and 62 or 61, something like that. So on the next slide here, remember, the median has to be either, go back to the list, it either has to be paired up with the 58 somehow or the 62. No, sorry, I knew the mean had to be between 59 and 59.75. So if the mean is around that and the median is going to be the same number, I know that the unknown x value should be between 58 and 62. So I might as well put x right here. Now this x value has to get paired up with the 58. So I could surmise that the median here can be thought of as likely pairing with that 58, because again, we probably know what the x value is. It's probably 59, 60, 61, something like that. I could think of it as 58 plus x divided by 2, because I know that those two numbers, given x is going to be larger than 58, those two numbers are going to go together to form the median. So what I could do is I could take this equation and this equation, solve for x, which isn't too bad. You can multiply that through by 8. If you remember, this multiplied by 8 gets us back to 415. So you get 415 plus x is equal to, let's multiply this by 8. So 8 over 2 is 4. 4 times 58. So 4 times 58 is going to give us 232. So 232 plus, this will be 4x. Okay, let's subtract x from both sides. So we get 3x over here, 232 on the right-hand side. The left-hand side is 415. And then let's subtract 232 from both sides. So we get 3x is equal to 415 minus 232 is 183. 183 is divisible by 3 because the sum of the digits is 12. So let's divide this by 3 and we get 61. So 61 is equal to x. So that's indeed the unknown value that we were looking for. By the way, this is probably one of the hardest SAT math questions I've ever done, to be perfectly honest. But hopefully I've really explained it and you know why, kind of first of all, where the range of the mean should be and kind of what median we should be expecting. We probably shouldn't be expecting a very long decimal. We probably should be expecting a mean or median like 59.5, especially because we have like integer values that we must use for this data set. But then otherwise, I mean, we were able to pretty much diagnose roughly where the x value should be, the unknown value. So we could pretty much figure out that 58 plus x over 2 was going to be the median. Okay, so that's how we solve, and then we move on to other questions, but it turns out you'll see the other questions will be correct because otherwise we had a perfect score on all these math questions. So we'll move on. Margot gets paid $32 per hour for the first 40 hours she works each week. Every additional hour she works after the first 40 hours, she earns $38 an hour. Which function f gives a total amount of money in dollars Margot earns in a week when she works h hours, h greater than or equal to 40? In the first 40 hours, 40 times 32 is 1,280. So we know she's at least going to earn that. And then she's going to earn $38 for each additional hour. Okay? So it's either going to be 1,280 plus the hours that's above 40, so 38 times h minus 40, or something similar. But in any case, if I distribute the 38, so I'm going to have 38h minus 1520 plus 1280. So that's going to be 38h minus, and again, we'll do 1520 minus 1280. So that's 240. So believe it or not, I think this would be our function, f of h, 38h minus 240. Notice the reason it's that is because you might think b, because she's going to earn $1,280 for the first 40 hours. But that's only if the h here was not the total number of hours she worked, but the hours above 40. Okay? It's not 32 times h, because that's only her hourly rate before the 40 hours is up. And it's not 70, because we're not going to add these two numbers together. That's not correct. Okay, so A is the most reasonable and righteous choice. Okay, so we're going to move on. Triangles ABC and JKL are similar. Angles A and J each measure 68 degrees. Angles B and K each measure 32 degrees. What additional piece of information must also be true? Okay, so we have triangle ABC and JKL. Okay, so let's sketch two similar triangles. So ABC, JKL. These are not necessarily to scale. A and J are each 68 degrees. 68 degrees, 68 degrees. Okay, same angle. We also know B and K each measure 32 degrees. 32 degrees. Okay, so there we go. So 68 plus 32 is 100 degrees. So that means this has to be 80 degrees right here. So that's one possibility. So angle C and angle L is 80 degrees. Now, are they right triangles? No. None of them have a 90-degree angle. Are they both triangles that are isosceles? Well, no, because you'd have to have two equal angles to have two isosceles triangles. So then we have to think about something about the side lengths. So we're looking at something about how AB and BC are compared, and KL and JK. So AB, how does that compare to BC? So let's consider C as possibly was true. AB is to this side, which is BC, okay? So that's the side across from the 80-degree angle is to the side across from the 60-degree angle, as it should be this compared to this. So it'd be JK is to KL. Yes. Now, that means C is incorrect, it looks like. Let's double check that D is correct. KL is to JK. KL is to JK. That's here on the bottom. Is that the same thing as, so KL is to JK, KL is to JK, as BC is to AB? Yes, that's correct. Hopefully you follow the logic. Okay? So it's just in order. It's this one is to this one as this one is to this one. Okay, so that follows. You got to be kind of careful with these similar triangles. Okay, I think we've answered all the questions. I'm going to submit the exam. So thank you very much for watching High Peak Education. Please smash that like button if you enjoy this content. Please subscribe to the channel to grow the channel. Social media links are down in the description below, We appreciate your support. Please feel free to contact us at highpeakeducation.com in order to work with us. I will look forward to seeing you in the next video.